Hi, this is Muho again from Osaka, and I'm returning to the question what it means to study with a teacher. What is the importance of the teacher in the first place? Last week I read the question of a person who says, I trust the teacher, but the teacher simply has different ideas about practice than I do. So what am I supposed to do? He writes, my current teacher is not a big proponent of Shikantaza, just sitting as it's taught by Dogen Zenji. And Dogen Zenji usually says, just sit. If you just sit, that's it. Sawaki Roshi says, Zazen is good for nothing. But if you don't practice this Zazen, that's good for nothing. Your whole practice will really be good for nothing. The teacher of this person is obviously not a big proponent of Shikantaza, but steers students toward koan practice Zazen. Koans are questions, and the student is supposed to give an answer to the question, but the question is not a logical question, but like this famous koan, you clap with two hands and you get a sound. What's the sound of one hand? That would be a famous koan. So the teacher steers students toward this koan practice, which is not my intuitive way to practice, the questioner says. So now comes the real question. Do you look for another teacher? So do I decide that this is not my teacher? Maybe I should change the teacher because his idea of practice is not my idea of practice. Or do I ignore the preferences of the teacher? You have. Ignore the preferences of the teacher you have. So my teacher seems to prefer koans, but I prefer Shikantaza, so I ignore the preference of the teacher. I just forget about what my teacher says. Or, so-called middle way, do you adapt their practices instead of what feels right for you? So I still stick with Shikantaza, but maybe there's something, some hints that I can get out of what my teacher says, and I can somehow implement it into my practice. Maybe I can make some kind of compromise. Maybe I can reshape what the teacher says. And last week I was talking about this book, Shobogenzo Zui Monkey, where Dogen Zenji addresses exactly this problem. He was talking about a student that is very attached to his idea that making prostrations in front of a box that he has never opened, but he supposes that this box contains the relics of the Buddha. The teacher tells him to stop it, but he doesn't want to believe. So the teacher tells him, open the box and there's a poisonous snake in it. So Dogen Zenji says it's not about making prostrations, but follow the teacher and just sit. But how if it's the other way around? Like in this case, the student is very attached to the idea that just sitting, even without the idea of gaining enlightenment, Zazen, that's good for nothing. Daily practice. That's true practice, but there's a teacher that tells him, no, you need a koan, you need a question, you need something that gets you out of your comfort zone. Should you ignore that teacher? Should you maybe even change the teacher? Or should you somehow adapt that teacher into your own ideas, with your own ideas? Try to make it fit with your own ideas. I myself, I would call myself a proponent of Shikantaza. I'm not a proponent of koan practice, but still I have a certain sympathy with that koan approach. Because there's a lot of people who, just like this guy who makes the prostrations, make Shikantaza into a routine. It's just a part of the day, and they maybe enjoy that time because for them it's a time to switch off. They switch off for 30 minutes, 1 hour, and they can forget about all their troubles. But the question then is, yeah, what's the meaning of that when you get back to real life? And isn't Zazen part, at least part of the practice, also to make us step out of the comfort zone? In a book that's called Gakudo Yoshinshu, which also used to be published by Soto Shu, I don't know if that's still available, Dogen Zenji says when you sit, Zazen obstructs you. You're obstructed by Zazen. But many people that love Shikantaza, they are not obstructed anymore. So if the teacher thinks, oh, this guy actually just uses Shikantaza as an excuse to switch off for half an hour or 1 hour every day, but actually they've fallen into a pitfall. They might want to decide to obstruct the way for them and maybe, for example, confront them with a koan. Why not? Getting back to the Zuimonki last week I read the first section of the first book. Today I want to read the last section of the last book. That would be book 6, section 17. Dogen instructed. There is a proverb about the way of the emperor. If one's heart is not empty, it is impossible to accept loyal advice. What this means is that without holding personal views, one follows the opinions of loyal ministers and carries out the way of the sovereign according to how things should be. So that, according to Dogen's point of view and probably also Chinese philosophy, would be a perfect emperor. Perfect emperor who forgets about himself and listens to his ministers. Actually, that's something that Dogen also says in the Gakudo Yoshinshu, chapter 2. He says, Buddha is something like a loyal minister. So interesting that Buddha is not the emperor, but you are the emperor. You are the emperor. You are the king. But although you are the king, you have to forget about your own ideas and listen to the ministers and the teachers and the patriarchs, the ancestors and the Buddha. Those are loyal ministers. You should listen to your ministers. And Dogen continues. The attitude of Zen monks practicing the way should be the same. If you hold on to personal views, even slightly, the words of your teacher will not enter your ears. If you don't listen to your teacher's words, you cannot grasp your teacher's dharma, the teaching. Forget not only the different views on the dharma, but also worldly affairs and hunger and cold as well. When you listen, being completely purified in body and mind, you will be able to hear intimately. When you listen with this attitude, you will be able to clarify the truth and resolve your questions. The true attainment of the way is casting aside body and mind and following your teacher directly. If you maintain this attitude, you will be a true person of the way. This is a primary secret. So Dogen doesn't seem to be quite fond of this idea of adapting the words of the teacher to your own ideas, but let go of your own ideas and follow the words of the teacher. Uchiyama Roshi also writes about this. To you who has decided to become a monk, you can find that on the homepage of Antaiji, and I will put a link to the text in the description of the video if you're interested in the words of Uchiyama and how he thinks about the relation towards the teacher. He basically says you should aim at being a perfect student of an imperfect teacher. You will never find a perfect teacher. Still, you should try to relate to that teacher in a perfect way. But then the next question is, does this mean that I always follow the teacher unconditionally, whatever he says? Even if I think it's strange, even if I think it's wrong, am I still supposed to follow the teacher? And Dogen Zenji also talks about this in book 6 of the Zui Monkey. I want to read first section 12 and then section 14. In section 12 of book 6, Dogen Zenji writes, or instructs, these days many people who are learning the way listen to a talk on the Dharma and above all want their teacher to know that they have a correct understanding and want to give good replies. So when the teacher says the Zen is good for nothing, they parrot that and say, yes, 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 the Zen is good for nothing. And if the teacher says, no, you need a question, then they parrot that and say, yes, we need a question, we need to get out of the comfort zone. And they try to give good replies to the teacher. This is why the words they listen to go in one ear and out of the other. They still lack body-mind and remain self-centered. We pretend to give up ourselves, let go of our ideas, but we only do that to impress the teacher. Hey, I've given up my own ideas. I'm a really egoless student. I'm a perfect student. That's not body-mind, that's also a form of self-centeredness. And again, this week, I'm not quite at the end of the story, so next week I'm gonna get back to it once more. Sorry for taking so much time, but see you again. Thank you, and bye.